In the world of organized crime, some names become legends, others become myths, but a few become something more dangerous: invisible. For decades, one man operated in the shadows of Mexico's most powerful criminal network. No interviews, no flashy mansions on television, no dramatic public speeches, yet his influence stretched across borders. His name was Ismael "El Mayo" Zambada. Born in 1948 in rural Sinaloa, Mexico, he grew up in a region where poverty and opportunity often collided. Sinaloa was known for its mountains, its agriculture, its isolation, but it would later become known for something else: drug trafficking routes. As a young man, Zambada understood his environment: limited legal opportunity, weak institutional control, growing international demand for narcotics. The conditions were already forming. He did not begin as a global figure. He began locally. Small operations, regional connections, careful partnerships. While others sought dominance through aggression, he built influence quietly. By the 1970s and 1980s, drug trafficking networks in Mexico were evolving. Smuggling corridors expanded, international routes strengthened, and organizations became more structured. Zambada became deeply involved in what would later be known as the Sinaloa Cartel. Unlike some cartel leaders who embraced attention, El Mayo avoided publicity. He rarely appeared in photographs. He did not grant interviews. He avoided unnecessary exposure. This strategy became one of his greatest strengths. While more visible figures were arrested or killed, he remained. When power struggles fractured criminal groups, he adapted. When alliances shifted, he repositioned himself. Survival became his reputation. Authorities around the world placed enormous pressure on cartel leadership. Arrests increased, extraditions followed. Major operations disrupted networks. Yet El Mayo continued operating for decades. How? Experts often describe his approach as calculated patience. He avoided confrontation when possible, maintained strategic relationships, delegated responsibility. He understood that visibility invites targeting, and targeting brings downfall. But power at that scale does not exist without consequences. The expansion of drug trafficking networks fueled violence across regions. Communities experienced instability. Families suffered losses. Law enforcement and civilians alike were caught in cycles of retaliation. The drug trade was not just a business structure. It became a social crisis. Governments responded with force. Military deployments increased. International cooperation expanded. Pressure intensified. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, high-profile cartel leaders were captured. Some were killed, others extradited. But El Mayo remained elusive. His ability to avoid capture became part of his identity. Rumors surrounded him. Stories multiplied, yet confirmed public appearances were rare. This absence created mystique. But mystique does not erase impact. The long-term effects of cartel violence reshaped entire communities. Economic instability, fear, distrust in institutions. The cost was measured not in headlines, but in everyday life. As global attention focused on louder figures, El Mayo continued operating behind the curtain. But time changes every structure. New generations emerged. Technology improved surveillance. International intelligence networks strengthened. The era of invisibility began to narrow. In recent years, the landscape shifted once again. Internal divisions, external pressure, changing strategies. The system that once protected secrecy became more fragile. Whether remembered as a strategist, a survivor, or a symbol of organized crime's endurance, El Mayo represents something larger than one individual. He represents how systems allow power to grow in silence. He represents how visibility is not always necessary for control. And he represents how long-term criminal structures embed themselves into society, But no system is permanent. History eventually closes every chapter. The story of El Mayo is not about admiration. It is about understanding how influence operates quietly, how structures survive through adaptation, and how consequences extend far beyond one name. In the end, the loudest figures are not always the most powerful. Sometimes the longest-lasting empires are built in the shadows, documented, debated, controversial, a chapter in modern history that still unfolds. World Untold.